Well, hello and welcome to this webinar about how to create a direct in-dial for an agent. Direct in-dial is used to give an agent a direct line. This means they can give out a phone number that will get to them directly and bypass the IVR or any other settings that you have in place. To do this, we need to set up three things. We need to configure a phone number that the agent gets. We need to configure the campaign that the call gets added to if the agent is available. And we need to configure a workflow that defines what happens if the agent is not available. First, we need to check if we have a phone number available to be assigned as a DID. So to do that, we go up to Channels and go down to Voice. Here we can see that we've got one available, and to edit it we can go and press the little pen at the end of the line there. Here we can see the settings that we need to configure. So first thing we need to do is a channel name, which we're just going to call it something like DID for Perrin Shanks. The next thing would be the workflow. We've not configured a workflow, but what this does is it defines what happens if the agent that this DID is for is not available. So whether it diverts to another phone number or whether it goes to voicemail or whatever happens. And we'll define that in a later part of this webinar. We don't need to define this workflow parameter. But we do need to select this option, the third option here, which is use as direct in-dial number. If you don't see this option, then it hasn't been configured for your instance, and you'll need to contact support at IPscape. So the next thing that we need to do is configure the name of the agent that this number is going to be for, and then the campaign name. So we've not actually got anything configured as yet, or I've not shown you how to configure it. So we're going to come back to this area and add the workflow and the campaign once we've set them up. So this is just to check that we had a voice channel available. So we're now going to create that campaign, as I said. So if we go into here, we can go to campaigns and go to configuration, and we can add a campaign. It needs to be an inbound campaign, obviously, as this is a direct in-dial. And we go to next, and we can call it DID Perrin. So you can have a campaign for each direct in-dial, or you can have a direct dial for the company. So this is just a collection of settings that you can save the direct in-dial information again. So you can do either, and I'm going to just call this the company DID. So this is the direct in-dial campaign settings. The only reason you'd have different ones is if you wanted different settings for different people. So you can use the same campaign for lots of different people. So most of these settings we're just going to keep as default. I'm going to switch on call recording. You can change any of the settings that you like, but I'm just going to leave them all as default. So that is now my company DID set up. I now need to add the agents that this relates to. So to do that, I go to campaigns and down to queues. I'm going to find, so we've got DID company, which is the one we just created, and I can add myself to it. Okay, so that is my campaign setup. The next thing I need to do is create the workflow that's going to define what happens if I'm not available. So I'll go to workflows, I can then add new workflow, and for this one I'm just going to set it up as a direct DID workflow divert to phone number. So what happens here is I'm going to set this up so that it diverts the call to a phone number if I'm not available. Okay, so DID divert to phone number, you should see that here. And if I go to here, I can edit that. So I've got a blank workflow here, and I can add in options. So I can choose either the divert to phone number or the capture voice, which is the voicemail option, but we'll show you how to do that one in a minute. I'm just going to show you how to use divert to phone number to begin with, and this is divert to phone. I'm just giving it a name, it could be anything. This is how long the number is going to dial. So let's just say, yeah, so 50 seconds. It's going to try this number. I'm going to put in a number here. So you can put in the switchboard number if you like there, and put the diversion phone number. We just put in any number. So what that's going to do, the error message there was that was an invalid format, but as long as you divert to a phone number, that should work. We then can hook this up with all the other things. So we've created the campaign and we've created the workflow. We know which agent we're going to associate it with. Then go back to our voice channel. This is our free voice channel. We go into here, add the channel name. This is the DID number for Perrin Shanks. And then we choose the DID divert to phone number workflow. Select the third option there. Choose the agent that we want. So that's Perrin. And then the company DID campaign that we want it to relate to. And now if we go to save, that's now configured. So if we call that number now and we're logged in, it will then connect you with the agent Perrin Shanks. If you're not logged in, then it will divert to the phone number that we defined in the workflow. The next thing I'm going to have a look at is what happens if you want the calls to go to voicemail rather than get diverted to another phone number if the agent isn't available. To do that, we need to check a couple of things before we configure it. So first thing we need to check is whether the agent has a valid email address, and we do that here against the agent profile, and we just check that here they've got a valid email address. This is the email that a copy of the recording will be emailed to. The next thing we need to check is whether we have the ability to send email, which is here. If we go to channels and email, we can just check that we've got an email channel set up. That's quite simple to do. If you haven't, you just go add email channel, and there's another webinar about how to do that if you need to do it. The next thing we need to do is set up the email template that we'll send if we need to, and it will have the recording attached to. So we go to here, go to email templates, press add, and then we can say this is the DID VM template. So this is the template that we're going to attach a copy of the recording on voicemail to. We go to save, and this again can be for the whole company. It's not per agent, or it can be per agent, but it doesn't have to be. So what I'm going to do, the default subject title is you have voicemail. So we've got that there. This destination type is important, so we can say it goes to the agent email address. So that's the email that we have against the agent's profile. The rest you can leave pretty much as default. And then we can add in the details, so dear first name, so this is just a mail merge effectively. Please find attached a voicemail. And then we can go to save, which is just here. Email template has been saved. And that's done. So we've got all of the stuff that we need to create our voicemail object. So we now just need to change over the workflow or create a new workflow. I'm actually going to create a new workflow. So add new workflow. And this is DID VM workflow. I'll just copy that down. Save. Should be able to see that here, so we can find that workflow, and we now need to configure it. So if we go into that, and now I can add the items to it. So I add new object, capture voice is the voicemail object, and give it a, so this is DID VM, this can be anything Now you can call it whatever you like. Maximum hold period. This is how long the person can leave a message for, so we'll just have 1 minute. Explanatory sound prompt. This is a sound file explaining that you need to leave a message after the tone. So I've got one already configured, but you can add on one of those as you need. This email channel is the email that it will be sent from, and that's in that email channel that we checked was set up. And then we just need to choose the direct in-dial voicemail template that we just set up a moment ago. If we go to save, that's now created. We've got a new workflow, and we just need to change that over in the voice channel. I can then leave that area and go to voice. And you can see, find our direct in-dial, you'll see that this is the one for Perrin Shanks. If I go into here, go to the pen at the end of the line, rather than having it divert to a phone number, we'll divert to voicemail and save. And it's as simple as that. That concludes this webinar. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one.